All right, let's get right into it. We're about to dive deep into the mind of Ahmed Ben Chaiba. Now, this is a serial entrepreneur who has built an absolute empire. We're talking tech, real estate, and yeah, that iconic Aquafun water park in Dubai. He's won CEO and Entrepreneur of the Year, but honestly, the awards aren't the real story. The real story is the mindset that got him there, a mindset that was literally forged in relentless failure.
So, what's with this number? 617. That is the number of rejections, failures, and doors slammed in his face, not over his whole career, in his first year of business. Just let that sink in. That's almost 2 no's every single day. I mean, most people would have packed it in after 10. He was just warming up. So, how on earth do you endure that?
Well, it really boils down to this one simple but incredibly powerful idea. He just refused to stop. And this wasn't some choice he made once and then coasted. No, this was the core principle he lived by every single day. This philosophy of just pure, raw perseverance, it's the foundation for everything he's ever built. Okay, so let's break down this first pillar of his mindset. You see, he didn't just survive failure, he was forged by it. His entire approach to life, to business, was shaped by these early, super intense struggles that pushed him to a level of commitment that is, well, it's almost unbelievable. This scale of this is just, it's hard to wrap your head around. We are talking about almost 5 straight years, that's 57 months, working anywhere from 10 to 19 hours a day, without a single day of rest. That's not just working hard. That is a complete and total surrender to the process. It was a phase that proved to him, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he could outwork absolutely anyone. But, that kind of intensity, it always comes with a cost. And eventually, he hit what he calls the hardcore wall. I mean, he was getting slammed with massive legal cases. He'd lost everything financially, and everyone, friends, family, you name it, they were all telling him to just give up. Get a job, they said. Save yourself. He says when the weight is so heavy you literally fall to your knees, well, you're in the perfect position to pray. And in that moment of total surrender, his entire perspective changed. And that moment, that leads us right into the second pillar of his mindset, the incredible power of accountability. This is the mental framework that didn't just let him survive hitting that wall, it let him use it as a launchpad. It's all about shifting from a world that happens to you to a world that you are in control of. And this contrast right here is absolutely crucial. On one side, you have the victim mentality, blaming other people, feeling powerless. Ben Shiva just completely rejects that. Instead, he goes all in on radical accountability. His view, if something goes wrong, it's my fault. Now, this isn't about beating yourself up. It's about power. Because if it's your fault, guess what? You're the one in control. You have the freedom to change the outcome. So the tool he uses for this is something called radical acceptance. It's basically about looking at any situation, no matter how bad it is, and just accepting it as reality. You don't have to like it, you don't have to approve of it, but by just accepting that, okay, this happened, you get rid of the two biggest thieves of your energy, anxiety about what's coming and regret about what's past. And this quote just brilliantly lays out his motivation. See, his biggest fear isn't failing, it's regret. The pain of not even trying. He believes that if you take a shot and you fail, you learn something. If you succeed, amazing. But the only real loss, the only thing that truly stings, comes from the things you were too scared to even attempt. For him, action is the only cure for regret. Okay, so all this mindset stuff sounds great, but how does it actually translate into strategy? Because it's not just theoretical, right? It turns into a really unique and powerful way of doing business, and there's no better example than how he deals with his competitors. So get this, a bunch of competitors straight up copied his water park business. I mean, down to the logo. His response wasn't lawyers or anger, it was this: you always win with love. Now, that sounds pretty counterintuitive for a ruthless entrepreneur, but believe me, it was the key to one of his most brilliant business moves ever. So here's how the gambit played out. First, he actually called his competitors and sincerely offered them help and advice. They were, confused, but said no thanks. Second, he just waited. He knew they didn't have the experience to keep things running. And sure enough, within 6 months, they were calling him, telling them they were going out of business. And finally, the masterstroke. He acquired all their assets, buying everything for just 10 cents on the dollar of what they originally paid. The return on this move was just staggering. Okay, so he buys one competitor's assets for only $24,000.
He immediately turns around and rents them out for a single 4-day event and makes $350,000. Then he rented them out again and finally sold them for another $250,000. By choosing love over war, he turned a major threat into an absolute masterstroke. So all of this makes you ask the question, right? What drives someone to work this hard, to think this strategically? And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important pillar of his mindset, a purpose that goes way beyond just making money. First, you have to understand his competition isn't other companies, it's himself. He's playing what you'd call an infinite game, where the only goal is to be better than he was yesterday. He sets these goals that absolutely terrify him because he knows that to hit them, he has to literally morph into a new, better version of himself. It's just his constant process of evolution. But the ultimate why, the thing that really fuels the fire, is what he calls business with God. He sees his whole empire not as the end goal, but as a vehicle. It's like a partnership where all the commercial success gets directly funneled into a higher purpose, creating massive, structured, worldwide charitable impact. And we're not talking about some vague idea here. The return on investment for his business with God is tangible. It's real. The profits are systematically funneled into projects that support orphans, fund education, provide clean water, and build housing in 6 different countries around the world. That is the real bottom line. So, as we wrap this up, we're left with this really powerful question. Ahmed Ben Chaiba's story, it isn't about avoiding failure at all. It's about running towards it, embracing it, learning from it, and using it as the actual key that unlocks the door. And it really challenges all of us to rethink our own relationship with failure and to ask ourselves, what could we achieve if we just weren't so afraid to fail?